Welcome to Scaling with People, your weekly playbook for turning chaos into compounding growth. Each week, we go under the hood with battle-tested experts in all areas of business, from marketing to sales, operation, finance, and people, plus product and leadership, to unpack the plays, numbers, and systems that turn chaos into compounding growth. Learn straight from founders and experts who've done it and continue to do it successfully. There's zero fluff, just moves that you can steal immediately. This podcast is brought to you by Guide to HR, human expertise, AI-powered impact. Welcome, everyone, to today's Scaling with People podcast. I'm Guinevere Crary, your host and CEO and founder to Guide to HR. So, founders and CEOs, listen up. If you're treating HR like a dusty filing cabinet instead of the rocket fuel for your people strategy, this episode is your wake-up call. Today, we're joined by Terri Wilson, the powerhouse behind doing HR differently, who's here to flip your org chart upside down in the best possible way. Terri's on a mission to help founders stop winging it within their people and for their people and start investing in HR like it's the strategic engine of growth it actually is. We're talking about building leadership capacity before you're drowning in fires, design HR systems to scale, not to strangle you, and why treating HR as an afterthought is costing you more than you think. This isn't a fluffy policy talk. Oh, we don't want to talk about policies. No way. This is a real world strategy for scaling smart, leading boldly, and turning your people ops into your competitive edge. So strap in, everyone. Terri's about to change how you scale. Welcome, Terri. I'm so excited to have you on this call. For our audience, say hi and tell them a little bit about yourself.
Hi, Guinevere. Hi, everyone. I'm Terri Wilson, the CEO and founder of Doing HR Differently, and I'm super excited to be here. The name itself, Doing HR Differently, really asks a question. How do you do HR differently? And for me, I don't. So I started this business because I really wanted to help founders and CEOs just understand the power that they have with HR. And I don't know. It's interesting. It's I have an interesting relationship with HR because I love it because it's around people, but I don't want to be limited by it. So when I think of doing HR differently, it's an organizational function. It has to do with people, but it also has to do within the ecosystem that people work within.
Yeah. When you're talking, I almost thought it's like, how do you breathe differently? You got to breathe, but how do you breathe differently where you get more oxygen and you're more effective? You're expanding your lungs, right? Like you got to breathe, but how do you do it differently to be more impactful to your system, to be healthier and have longevity?
Yeah, and it's interesting. Most companies of any, significant size has an HR function. But I wonder how many of those companies actually take advantage of their HR function to use it as a business driver. And honestly, I don't think there are many because they don't see the power that HR can bring. There's always the compliance piece, there's always the hiring and the firing, whatever. That is basic. Those are table stakes. You have to have it. But how do you use the HR function and the team within HR to drive your business forward? And that is what we really want to talk about. Why? Because it is so possible and it is so easy, but you do have to flip the switch. HR can be so much more than it is right now.
Oh my gosh, it's so true. And they used to talk about let us be at the table. And now I think you and I've been talking about it's not being at the table. We're already there. It's about letting us have the power to change what's on the table. Right.
Absolutely.
So
Yeah.
let's dive in. I mean, this feels very high level. Do you have a good example? Let's dive in and kind of crack open a case study here that could help our listeners understand what we're truly talking about.
Sure. So, it's interesting as a consultant right now, I'm working with many different companies. And I have a client right now, it's a smaller client, but they are not used to having a strategic human resources partner. They're used to having a transactional HR partner. And so when I was brought on board, it was to do both. It was be the transitional or transactional person, but also can you elevate? And honestly, you can do both, but one is going to win out. And what
Yes.
usually wins out is going to be the transactional, the tactical. And that's exactly what happened. So after months of dealing with the tactical, every now and then I could do something strategic. And the leadership started to see, oh, that's interesting. Hadn't really seen that before because they had never experienced that. So I really started pushing more and more of that so that they could see HR can do so much more than what they thought it could. And so now, after a year and a half, they clearly see this the strategic piece is where the value is. We've moved them to a PEO to take care of the administrative work. And honestly, things are going extremely well. Why? Because we are talking about the things that drive the business forward. We are talking about how do we develop talent? How do we do succession planning? How do we do all these basic things that rarely get done in the time frame that they should get done? We know, and being in HR, they will happen, but they usually happen when there's a crisis.
Yeah. Or when you finally have a moment to breathe, which let's just be honest, is never the case because HR, like you said, is very tactical, operational, and
Mhm.
you are constantly having to deal with benefits, payroll, compliance, employee relations, lawsuits, whatever it might be. It's hard to get out of that tactical and be strategic and have those conversations.
Guinevere, it's interesting because I think, we use the word strategic a lot. And what does that really mean, right? What does being
Yeah.
strategic in HR really means? And for me, when I think of being strategic, that means I'm aligned with the business, where it's going, the things that I'm working on, the things that I'm pushing forward, the things that I'm correcting, whatever it I'm doing, I am adding to those business objectives, those business goals. I mean, it's a very clear line of sight, so it's not like I'm over here in the corner doing my own thing. It's like, no, I'm right there with the business leaders. We're crafting strategy together. We're looking at our KPIs. We're doing all of this, and we're making the necessary shifts to stay on target and even exceed them.
Yeah. I think that's so important. It's all about the business, understanding the business, the goals, the direction, and then helping keep the business in that mindset, right? And having the tough conversations too. Yeah, I love it when you get into a point where kind of sitting there and you're like, you guys are just literally not trusting each other. There isn't a safety component here. And we're literally just all having conversations of how we're doing so well, puff our chest, look at our metrics. But is that really what we should be doing? And sometimes throwing in a question of like, is this moving the needle? Are we actually focused on the right thing as leaders, right? And kind of stopping the leaders and the executive team from their normal dance that they're doing and make them really have some thoughts.
Well, it's interesting too because you don't always see what you do. And one of the things that this isn't just exclusive to HR, but it tends to fall into the HR bucket is we not only look at what we're trying to achieve, but how it is achieved. Because I have the strong belief that what we need to achieve is very important, but how we achieve is even more important. Why? Because if we can achieve it well together, then we can achieve more together, right? So many times we get to a goal and it's like we've reached the goal, but look at the mess we've created
Or
to
all the
reach the
people that
goal.
we left behind.
Yes, yeah. So
Yeah.
so for me it is the what and it is the how. And so when I think, when I think about the work that I do and the value that I can bring to an organization, it is to help you achieve your goal, but to help you achieve it in a way that enables you to achieve the next goal and the next goal and the next goal. And you're right, it is asking those tough questions, not necessarily having the answers, but helping them get to the best answer for them.
Yeah. Or even sometimes just getting stuck, helping them get stuck from a rut, right? And really kind of let's redirect our focus to
Mhm.
the right thing that we think like, or even like, what is the right thing? And what do we believe is going to move the needle to take us to the next level as a business? And asking those questions.
So, it's interesting that if you don't have the relationship to be able to ask those questions,
Mm-hmm.
you can ask them, but no one's going to take you seriously or they're not really going to listen. So part of, being that strategic business partner is you have to develop those relationships. So
Yeah.
that, and I like to say, I like to gain and maintain influence because whatever I'm bringing forward, I want you to know this is for your benefit, right?
Yeah.
And I want it to be a good flow of great stuff, but also hard stuff. Why? Because I want you to look at me in the business as a person who's joined alongside you and it's helping us go forward. And going forward sometimes is tough. It's
Yeah.
tough. So when I think about, HR as a strategic function, it's how do you see it in the first place? If you've never had that strategic partner, you don't even know what it is. So that's usually the first place I go. Tell me your experience with HR. And that always tells me where I need to start, because just because
Yeah,
I've had that experience doesn't mean other people have.
right.
So if you haven't had that experience, now I have a lot further, a lot more work to do. If you have, then I want to know, tell me what you found most valuable, because I want to make sure that I replicate that and bring more to the table.
Oh, I love that. I'm writing that down in my diary right now. So, as we're building and showing that we can be more than a support function, and in fact, we can actually be a strategic asset and advisor, let's kind of go over to building leadership capacity, because I think in a time where we're talking about, hey, now we've defined that we can be your strategic partner, we can help you with your business and grow it. It's also about leadership, and it's about the capacity of the leadership, the skill sets of the leadership, helping the founder CEOs be able to truly think about the performance of the executive team is, where there might be gaps, where there could be improvements. So tell me a little bit about, from your experiment, or excuse me, your experience on helping founders and leaders get
Yeah.
to the point where we're having that open conversation.
Yes, I appreciate it. And I honestly, I know that was a miss when you said experiment, but it really is, because it's an experiment, because every organization is different.
Yeah,
And what works in one organization might not work in the exact way in another. So you really are experimenting, and that's okay, because you're trying, and what works, you move forward. So I think that the leadership piece is really interesting to me, because so many times I find that by the time you realize you have an issue in leadership, you turn around and you ask HR to help, but there's been no investment in HR to be prepared for that. So, in
yeah.
other words, I like to say you have the HR that you've invested in, which is
Mhm.
why one of the key points is you need to invest in HR. You need to look at not just what you need now, but what you need into the future. And if you value having a really good partner who's going to support you, but also challenge you, then that's what you need to look for. That's what you need to develop. And then when they do that, then you need to respect that, and you need to honor that, because so many times people will say they want something and they really don't, because when it starts
Yeah.
to come, they're like, what are you doing? And so for a person who has chosen HR as a field, one, it's a passion. Two, they see so many things that the average person doesn't see. And three, they want to grow. And so if they're in an organization where their voice is not heard, where their contributions are not valued, they're not like any other employee, they're not going to stay. And when that talent walks out the door, now you have to find more talent. And every time you have to do that, you lose something, because the person who comes in next is going to be looking for something similar, maybe a different, mix. But the point is, people want to grow. And in HR, most people don't want to grow in HR. They want to grow in the business, because
Yeah.
the more they know about the business, the more they can contribute.
Absolutely. So, key I'm hearing is invite your HR business partners, your leaders into the conversations, into the department conversations, into the business conversations. The more knowledge they know about the business, the better they can drive strategy around how to manage the people, how to level them up, how to move them forward. And even like, a lot of times I find CEOs have a really hard time managing low performers within their own direct report area, and or bullies or narcissists. If you're a kind founder, you might be an engineer or product person that's maybe more introvert. You hire on more extrovert people that are more powerful in their words and in their influence. It can be very intimidating for a CEO to manage that.
Yes. So this is a big one, because again, as a founder and a CEO, you're building a company, and you have to look at what talent you need, not just what skills, but what are all the other components? How do they work with others? They can be an excellent person in marketing, but they just don't get along with their peers. How long can that work in your organization?
Yeah.
So being very mindful, like, if you look at marketing, sales, IT, and finance, those are critical components of a business. Well, I would add HR as another one. So when you look at building a team, what are you looking for? You're looking for functional skills. You're looking for leadership skills. Are you also looking for teamwork skills? How do they work across? because you don't want to be, as a founder and CEO, you don't want to be the facilitator of them working
Yeah,
together. You want them to work together, bring what they need to bring to you, but they are pretty much running the business under your direction. And so
exactly.
from an HR standpoint, again, bring somebody on board that knows how to do that, right? And if
Yeah.
you have somebody on board that has the ability to learn how to invest in them, get them the support that they need to do that, because that's going to take your business so much further.
Yeah. Well, and it also sets up the founder CEO to spend their time in the right place. I always ask, how much time are you spending directing, coaching, advising your directs? And who's the least and who's the most time consuming person? And what is the difference behind what they're producing for you?
Mhm.
And then from there, really acknowledge, oh my gosh, like the person I spend 80% of my management time on is this one person. What could you do with 20% of that, or even 60% of that time? If I could give that back to you, could you
Mhm.
go and get more investors? Could you go and get more customers? Could you build something out that will help us be able to sell faster? What is it that you, as the founder, could actually be spending your time on wiser than a coaching, mentoring situation? Not saying you shouldn't do that, but if you're spending the majority of your manager time on one person, that's a flag.
It's a flag, and who is your partner that you talk to about that?
Yeah.
Where's your safe place? Someone who knows the organization, someone who knows the people, someone who, again, has been part of the process, but you feel comfortable saying, I need to have a conversation about this situation, or they bring it to you and say, I think there's an opportunity here that we need to take advantage of. And, what I've seen often that's very concerning to me is people will look the other way because on the people skills because they're delivering on the KPIs.
Yes.
And just a reminder to everyone, I know you know this, but your organization sees this
Oh, yes, they
and
do.
they are not even making an assumption. They understand that in order to this doesn't matter as much as this. So you
Yeah.
can treat us badly as long as you bring in the results. And if you try to talk through that, you are starting to denigrate your integrity.
Yeah.
Because especially if you look at what your values are and your values don't support that, it's
Mm-hmm.
a total mismatch. So again, coming back to HR can be your leader in that, not to do the work for you, but to partner with you and to talk you through how you can start to address that. Because if you are spending 80% of your time on a person, is that a good investment of your time? And it might be if it's going to turn around, but it might not be. It might be where it's sucking up your time, where maybe we need to make a change and we need to bring in another resource, another person who's better aligned with who we are. And we don't have to spend that additional time trying to get them to be where we want them to be.
Yeah, it reminds me of an article I read a while back ago where there was a researcher who came out, meta researcher who came out and said that the culture is leading with fear and is basically a cancer kind of culture. And wow, the damage that that article has most likely, I'm presuming, made, right,
Mhm.
publicly, but also too for the people that are living in that culture. Like, oh my gosh, my heart goes out to those employees. And I that really to me just screams that Meta doesn't care about their people. They're pushing their people like they're robots. And where's HR in that? Where is HR getting to be influencing making that cultural change? They're probably being probably putting push in the corner and say, go to your operational table. We don't want to hear from you, is my guess.
Guinevere, I mean, Meta is an amazing company, and they deserve a lot of kudos for a lot of things. The
Sure.
bottom line is they're still a workplace,
Yeah.
and anytime you have employees, you have a responsibility to those employees, and so you know, w- are they getting the feedback they need to understand what it's like to actually work there? And if they're getting that feedback, what are they doing with it? So, again, as a CEO and founder, do you have those systems in place where are you getting the feedback you need?
Yeah.
And if you are getting feedback, how are you engaging people in understanding, not just getting the feedback and then assuming and going? Feedback is an opportunity to engage. And so, again, just bringing it back to HR, don't relegate that to HR. that HR can help with that, but that is not an HR function. That's an organizational function and HR can help with because when you put it on HR, people will just look and say it's over there
Mm-hmm.
versus it's everywhere.
And I think also too, a lot of times it comes out as, oh, I checked the box because HR forced me to complete the survey or talk to them or whatever it might be. It might not be as impactful as if it's coming from, hey, I am the CEO, I am the leader of this department, and I am sponsoring this with HR supporting us, executing and bring coming back at the table of like what we're going to do about it, right? Uh,
Mhm.
yeah, so many times it. Another thing I will say, let me flip it a little bit, is it's hard to go out and try to get that feedback if you have a cultural fear, if you have a culture where people feel like it doesn't matter what I say, nothing's going to change. So before you make that decision to execute on that, think about that too. And is there something you need to fix there first and rebuild the trust to then get some more feedback that can then continue building and improving the morale and the culture inside of the org?
Well, and you're talking about you need to have a plan. I think I know I shared this with you, outside the podcast, but I could have made a lot of money in the 1990s doing a lot of diversity training. And I wouldn't do that. And here's why. Because when I asked the question, what's your strategy? What are you trying to accomplish? What are you trying to achieve? There weren't any answers. And I could not, in full conscious, do that knowing that I'd be leaving a situation worse off than it was because people wanted to talk. And unless they have a place for it to go and the
Mhm.
organization has a way to manage that, it was not going to be helpful. And so
Yeah.
I look at that and say, what is it in a culture that supports that ongoing conversation? What is it in a culture that prevents people from talking? Because here's the other thing, people have something to say, people have comments. The question is whether or not they feel comfortable sharing it, whether or not you receive it. And I just had that conversation with someone today. When you get feedback, your first job is just to receive it because then you're showing people, I want to hear, I want to take it in. If you start to take it in and you start to defend, what are you going to get? I'm going to stop talking. And
Mm-hmm.
then guess who doesn't get the information they need? You.
Right. Yeah. Exactly. And always being open to that too. I try to come to the table with, are you open to feed forward or feedback, however, terminology. And so I think it's really, if you're going to go out and ask for feedback, you better mentally be open to receive it and just sit there and receive it. Don't go into defense mode.
Mm-mm.
Don't go into excuse mode. Just receive it. And maybe set it up with like, I want to hear what you have to say, and I'm going to let you know I'm not going to respond. I will come back to you after I evaluate and process what you share with me because I want to be in the moment listening to you.
Yeah, I think that's so important. And when I think of human resources, at least the human resources that I've been a part of and then I promote is I can help anybody and everybody in an organization do that. Not because it's my functional responsibility, but because I care as a person. And
Mm-hmm.
I know that the better we can communicate and we can identify issues and work through those issues, we're going to be able to work together better and we're going to be able to do more together. So I'm going to take that on no matter what my role is. But because I happen to be in HR, it's really easy for someone to say, oh, that's an HR thing. Do not delegate your own responsibility to a function.
Yeah.
That is everyone's responsibility.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. So let's flip it a little bit here and talk about system side. I mean, we're talking about being strategic, we're talking about being human beings and building leadership, but also it is important to make sure that we're designing systems to be able to scale and grow a business. Uh, Tell me a little bit about that from your perspective.
So when you think about scaling your business and you think about where it is now, if you went from 100 people to 500 people, do you even know what needs to change? Do you think that what fits you at 100 would fit you at 500?
Hmm.
Right? And so many times that's not even a thought until it becomes a problem. So
Yes.
part of this is, again, being strategic. We want to grow. We want to grow from 100 to 500. So I can rest assure you those conversations are happening in sales, they're happening in marketing, happening in finance, probably IT. Are they happening in HR? Because here's what needs to happen. going from 1 to 500, that's 400 additional people. That is huge. Your systems have to be able to accommodate that, right? And so even if that's 2 or 3 years out, you need to be planning for that. So one of the things that I've seen in companies is they're hodgepodging their systems. Let's get
Yeah.
this system. Let's get this system. Because you can just tell when they've added things and they don't talk to each other.
Oh, yeah.
Versus if you pull back and say, we have to build to scale. So you go in knowing we need systems that can scale with us. And you start identifying what your needs are. If we went from 1 to 500, what would we need to have? And then you
Right.
go out and start finding the systems that can grow with you. You're in a better position than taking the hodgepodge of systems that you've collected over time. And at some point, you're going to turn around and say, this isn't working. Then you've got a crisis, and now you've got to figure it all out again. So why not
Yeah.
start in the beginning with, we do need to grow at some point. Might not be in the next 2 years, but we need a scalable system that can get us there. And our processes and our policies. So just getting people in the mindset of what works for 100 might not work for 500. And how do we start to have those conversations?
Yeah, the duct tape method. I can't tell you how many times I go into clients and I'm like, oh, this system has been duct taped so badly. I had one client where I came in, why do you have two HRIS systems? Like they had two active HRIS systems
Mhm.
going on at the same time. And ultimately found out none of their systems, like you said, none of them talk to each other.
Mhm.
Those systems didn't talk to finance. The systems didn't talk to IT. Everything was manual. And they had more people and more cost because of it. We completely blew it all up and put it back all together again in a scalable format. Systems are talking together. They didn't actually downsize any of the teams, but now the teams have breathable capacity to be more
Yes.
strategic in what their roles are: finance planning, getting
Mhm.
invoices out and getting them paid faster, right? IT being able to collect laptops faster and getting more security in place, being able to complete SOC 2 at other audits in a faster, more meaningful way. Like these are all things that can actually move the needle for the business that are usually like, oh, that's just operations, in the back house. I don't really, it's not sexy, it's not fun to talk about, but man, it can stop you dead in your tracks or it
Oh,
can lift
sure.
you up.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's interesting when you say that because if we asked our current HR team, right? If I was a CEO and a founder said, I've got two people in HR now. If I asked them, how can we be more efficient? What would they tell me? Where do we need to move the needle? If we can have a good conversation about that, okay, now I know I've got people that I can kind of go forward with. If they don't have a clue, I have a problem. Why? Because these are the folks that I'm counting on to
Yeah.
drive me forward, but I haven't asked them to do that. They're not prepared to do that. I haven't invested in them to do that, but yet I'm expecting them to do that. And
Yeah.
that's totally unfair. And so that's why it's so important. What do you have in place now? When you started your business, oh, okay, after about 35 people, I need to hire HR. What you need at 35 people, what you need at 100, what you need at 500, these are different things,
Yeah.
right?
Totally.
And so again, if you just look at your marketing, you look at your sales, you look at your, financial CFO, look at what you're investing there.
Yeah.
Do you have the same investment in HR? Because HR touches all of your people, touches all of your systems, manages all of your talent,
Yep.
right? And
Yep.
so you can be inefficient in those areas, but that also says something about you to potential talent. People are looking for companies where they can excel, where they can grow, where they can be proud to work at a company. All those things don't happen haphazardly. They're very intentional things.
Yeah.
And to me, HR is right at the center of all of that. Why? Because your business is run through people.
Yeah.
Even,
And
I'm sorry, go
the
ahead.
most expensive cost center typically
Labor. Yeah.
is the payroll. It's the
Yeah.
people,
Yeah.
right? So why are you spending so much money on people and not adding a little bit more to actually grow and enhance that area of your business?
And when you think about, AI, we're all still learning what all that means. I would venture to say that we're going to be engaging people in a different way. And if I'm not thinking about that as a business and including HR, that's a big miss. Big
Yeah.
miss. Because
Yeah.
how are you going to go? Are you going to go about that from a marketing angle? Are you going to go about that from a sales angle? I mean, how are you approaching that? And here's the thing. Nobody has the answer to this. We have to figure it out together. So you have to be okay with not knowing the answer, but knowing that you're engaged in a process that will get you to the answer, and you'll get there together.
Yeah, and if you think about it from AI, implementing AI, the skill set require up leveling your employees, that comes at the HR side of the house, right? In
Mhm.
respect to also supporting and working with department heads. I think you and I could probably talk about this all day long, but in respect of our audience, I want to wrap this up and just say there's so much here. I hope everyone got a tidbit out of don't put HR in the corner. And bring us out and let us be your strategic partner. We will help you grow and scale and be your rocket fuel for your ship to be just go from that one person to the 500 to the 1,000 plus, whatever your goal is. So thanks, Terri, so much for joining us. I loved having you. And for the audience, thanks for joining us. And we'll see you on the next one.
Bye.
Bye. That's a wrap for today's episode of Scaling with People. If you got value from this conversation, do me a favor, share it with someone building something big. And hey, I'd love to hear your take. Drop a comment, shoot me a message, or start a conversation. And don't forget to subscribe so you never miss the bold, unfiltered strategies we drop every week. I'm Guinevere Query, founder and CEO of Guide to HR, where we help high-growth companies scale smart with people-first strategies and AI-powered systems that don't just keep up, they lead. If you're building fast and want your HR to move faster, head to guidetohr.com and let's talk. And remember, scale isn't just about speed, it's about people. Until next time, have a great one.